Good afternoon, dear friends. It's the 24th of August. The big news is, of course, the death of Yevgeny Prigozhin in plane crash or plane explosion. Jury's still out. Now, of course, the Western media right now is screaming, "Oh, Putin had him killed." Well, if Putin wanted him killed, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have done it with 8 other victims. I'm not counting his right-hand man. There are plenty of ways it could have been done. Kept the casualties low and less dramatic. But that's aside the point. Well, let's discuss who else benefits from his death. Well, first of all, it's the West. Begin with the biggest benefactor, of course, is France. Because Wagner, as soft power of Russia, Wagner as a tool in Africa, which Prigozhin had gone back to Africa, work in Africa, is leading the anti-neocolonial revolutions in Africa. The French the general Western Europeans, are still colonial masters. They just got a little bit smarter. They're no longer running their colonies with their own white hands. They're using it with African hands. They created a local colonial elite who's selling out the resources, selling out their people just the same. So France, for example, out of Niger, gets uranium. It pays $50 per metric ton. The going market rate for the uranium ore is $250. So yes, they pay very cheap prices. All that goes in basically into the pockets of the local colonial elite. Or the French are paying 1/5 the actual cost. And the people work as slaves. So no major difference than 80 years ago or 60 years ago. They still have their colonies effectively. And anytime a local elite or local leader arrives on the scene that wants to change that, wants his country to actually prosper, the French start a revolution, usually by hiring thugs, either thugs inside the country or some other clans, or by bringing in Islamic jihadists, or hiring from across the border, and overthrowing that government. All in the name of demonocracy. And they do that constantly. In Mali, what happened in Mali is Wagner was on the spot. And Wagner helped stop that coup that the French were trying to set the stage on. The French had even brought military, mercs, but military from Chad. And that convoy was wiped out by Wagner. They were coming in to support the local thugs that the French had hired to try to start a revolution. Because again, new leadership had arrived, the new leadership decided that we're not giving away our resources for nothing. That's one part of the soft/medium-hard power Russia projects into Africa. The other part is Russia is building electric power plants. Nuclear power plants, electric power plants, which the Europeans and the Americans definitely don't want in Africa. Because if Africa has cheap energy, they'll start processing those minerals into more valuable materials there on the spot, i.e. keeping the wealth at home. Raw ore is one thing. Processed metal ore that's been cleaned of the rock is a whole different level of cost. Now, if you're doing already steel, like rolled steel, that's a whole different level of cost and profit. And then you're getting down into actual part production. Wow, you're a whole different level of value. You're walking up that value chain, and Europe and the U.S. doesn't want anybody walking up that value chain. They want the ore. They want the resources. So you need a slave population, minimal amount of people to dig out the resources, chop down the forests, and so on, and send it to the West, where the West will do the processing, the value add, the real value add. So when Russia comes in and Russia starts helping the local Africans, one country after another, start manufacturing at home, that got set in the bottom line of the neoliberal masters. And they don't like that. So Prigozhin, as leader of Wagner, and Wagner's back to reconcentrating in Africa, was a very good target. Then you have the Ukrainians. They've got obvious access to grind, especially since Prigozhin's little stunt didn't give them the hoped-for civil war in Russia. Then you got the Americans. And let's remember what General Petraeus, also former chief of the CIA, said to Wagner, to Wagner's head, Yevgeny Prigozhin. Be careful any open windows you walk by. That sounds like a threat. Or Biden, if he still remembers what he says. I don't think he even remembers what he eats for breakfast most days. But anyways, Biden had a little famous quote, as far as for Yevgeny Prigozhin. Be careful what you order on your menu. Now, in most courts of law, that would be considered a threat, a death threat. Both. It's the same thing as, with Nord Stream. They're threatening to destroy Nord Stream, they're threatening to destroy Nord Stream, Nord Stream gets destroyed. Oh, it's not us. We don't know who could have done that. Well, who has the motive and who's been making threats? 1 + 1 in America never equals 2. No, not the American government anyways. And with new math in the schools, it doesn't equal 2 in the schools either. So you get that. So who stood behind it? I mean, yesterday was, if I recall, Ukrainian Flag Day or something like that. And today is Day of Independence. So Ukraine's getting itself a little present that way. I mean, as a terrorist state backed by a terrorist-enabling West that also uses terrorist tactics, this is nothing new. Murdering people, blowing things up, that's the way the West works. If they can't get you on the battlefield, they'll try to stabilize or kill your population with terror tactics. And it's been proven over and over and over again. And Ukraine is the epitome of their terror states. The West is a terrorist enabler, using terrorist tactics themselves. Whether it's drones firing missiles across borders, blowing things up, or agents inside countries. And we see what Prigozhin, we've seen with Daria Dugin and other people, that the West and its proxies are more than happy to use absolute terrorism. But then again, what do you expect from Nazi and Nazi-enabling regimes? Actually, we might even say the Germans didn't do terror tactics like that in World War II. They were still more or less a step above what the West has degenerated into. So, who murdered Prigozhin? Of course, they're all screaming Putin. Because same thing as when various dissidents get killed. It's always Putin. Yeah, Putin in broad daylight is going to go have him killed. Because that benefits him. How? It's the same thing over and over again. Who benefits? Who benefits? And the number one beneficiary in all of this is the West. It may not be America. In this case, it may be the French. Maybe the Ukrainians. Well, Ukrainians always benefit. But Wagner was before Prigozhin. Wagner is after Prigozhin. Wagner's going to continue doing its mission. And West Africa is going to continue being liberated from neo-colonial rule. This is why Kowa is going to have to go to war with Niger, but it's not just going to be Niger, it's going to be Faso, it's going to be Mali, and it's going to be Algeria, and it's going to be Russia. And the French are going to be in the waist deep, and maybe the Americans too. But they have to go to war with it because they're next. All of them are colonial elites exploiting their own populations. And their people are sick and tired of it. And they've seen 3 countries now throw off the colonial yoke and start to work towards their own futures, minus France. So we'll see. I mean, this is the same thing that happened, much later, obviously. Same thing that happened to the French Indochina. One country after another threw off the French exploiters. Now, for France, this is a disaster. Uranium-wise, France gets 30% of its uranium from Niger. France has already lost most of its gold that it was getting from Mali. France, which has no continental gold mines anywhere in France. Mali, which is a major producer of gold ore. 95% of which, at rock bottom prices, goes to, drumroll, France. One of the biggest exploiters of humanity. Not as bad as the English say, or the Spanish were, or the Americans are at the present time. But up there in the big club. Definitely in the big club. Same big club you can drop Japan in. Japan just did it for a much shorter time than the others. So, there you go. Have fun. Life goes on.